diabetes, and then anything above 6.5 would be type 2 diabetes. Well, I had a 12.2. I was like off the chart. At the same time, they drew my cholesterol numbers, and I had a 565 cholesterol, a 561 triglycerides, a 22 HDL, which is just amazingly low, and then a 459 LDL. I've had two separate doctors, my endocrinologist as well as my primary care physician, tell me that 459 was the highest LDL number they'd ever seen. In fact, I had gone to a cardiologist and I asked him the question. I said, I've had two other doctors say that was the highest number they've ever seen. Is that the highest you've ever seen? And he said, no, it's not the highest, but it's up there. It's up there. You're lucky to be alive. And so he actually told me he wanted to put me on a treadmill test and do a stress test on my heart and see. He was confident I had blockages. Those kind of numbers are just indicative of blockages. I was going to have blockages. I was 44 years old and started my health journey. Now today, well, let me just stay on that path. He told me he did not want me exercising until he had that stress test done. In fact, he didn't want me watching scary movies or talking politics. He didn't want me talking anything that could get my heart rate up. He was confident I had blockages and that I could have a heart attack at any given moment. So terrified, was to say the least. And immediately they put me on 2,000 milligrams of metformin. That's a maximum dose of metformin for my type 2 diabetes. They also, my primary care said something to me on June 21st, 2021. It's amazing the days you never forget, right? June 21st, 2021, my primary care told me, you're going to be a lifelong insulin dependent. And that terrified me. I didn't know what that really, I mean, I knew what lifelong meant, but I didn't know what that, I thought you had to store insulin in a refrigerator. Like, we travel, like, how do I do that? You know, what if I don't have it? What if I forget to, get my prescription? Like, it was terrifying. Terrifying. And I went to my endocrinologist and I asked her, I said, am I going to be on insulin for the rest of my life? And she said, not if I have anything to do with it. There is 10 drugs between now and insulin. So she gave me confidence that maybe it wasn't quite as bad as it had been deemed to be. So she did put me on a 4.5 milligram pen of Trulicity. That's one of those new GLP-1 receptor agonist medications, kind of like Mounjaro or Ozempic. And then I was put on 40 milligrams a day of rosuvastatin calcium. That is the generic for Crestor for my cholesterol, help lower the cholesterol. And then I was put on 50 milligrams a day of losartan. That was for my blood pressure. I had chronically high blood pressure. I'd always been right on the line. One time I was high, next time I was low. They told me that it wasn't technically high until you'd had 3 consecutive doctor's appointments with it in the high range. And I would have 2, and then I would have 1 that was in the normal range. And then I'd have 1, and then there was 2 in the normal range. It was always right on the line, and then it crossed over. And I started getting 50 milligrams a day of losartan. Needless to say, which that's not a max dose, but everything else I was on was a max dose. I thought it was helpless and hopeless. These are the products that I'm going to have to take for the rest of my life. I'm going to need to take these medications forever and ever and ever. And that just sucks. That's an awful way to live. It doesn't feel good to be like that. And so here I sit on this very, very strict diet, eating a lot of the Mediterranean diet, which I really don't have a problem with the Mediterranean diet because it generally involves fish, and I actually like fish. But I had to get used to things like quinoa and barley and some other whole grains that I wasn't really familiar with. My dietitian told me I could have carbohydrates throughout the day. I could have 30 to 60 carbohydrates for breakfast, 30 to 60 carbohydrates for lunch, 30 to 60 carbohydrates for dinner, up to 15 carbohydrates for a snack between breakfast and lunch, and up to 15 carbohydrates for a snack before dinner. So if you were to max those carbohydrates out, what just happened to my image, huh? Sorry about that. If you were to max those carbohydrates out, I would be at 210 carbohydrates per day. I was excited because I was a type 2 diabetic. I thought I was going to be on a keto diet. I thought that was what you had to do as a type 2 diet. When you're uneducated, when you don't know what's coming at you, I guess I have to be keto now or something like that. I'm never allowed to have a carbohydrate again. So my dietitian saying, yeah, you can have this many carbs per day. I thought, wonderful, I can still live my life. Well, let me just break it down to you. If you have type 2 diabetes, your body, you are carbohydrate intolerant. Your body doesn't know what to do with the carbohydrates. It doesn't process them properly. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. You've kind of broke it. You broke the body. And adding that many carbs just continues to break the body, right? That's why we don't see people reversing type 2 diabetes. We're going to be talking about reversing type 2 diabetes today. Now, I've talked to a lot of people over the last year and a half of doing these live streams, and that diet that I was told by my dietitian, it seems like a lot of people are getting that same diet, right? 30 to 60 carbs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, up to 15 carbs for a snack in between each meal. And then avoid things like sugary coffee, right? Avoid the processed carbs, right? That's what we've heard. Well, what nobody ever talked to me about was something called insulin resistance. I had never heard of insulin resistance. June 21st, 2021, I was in the doctor's office getting all those awful labs. And December of 2022, a friend of mine who was selling a product called the Feel Great system mentioned that a lot of her customers were reversing type 2 diabetes. And I thought, it's interesting to note that particular friend of mine is brilliant. She's a chemical engineer. She was quite literally a rocket scientist. She's brilliant. And she said, hey, people are reversing diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And I remember in my mind thinking, don't say dumb things. People don't reverse diabetes. Don't say stupid things. It's not a reversible disease. I'm living it. It's not reversible. All you're doing is playing on the hopes and dreams of somebody who's vulnerable. But at the time, Ozempic had really taken off for helping people lose weight. And Ozempic went on national back order. And then everybody who was on Ozempic switched over to Mounjaro so they could get their medication filled for their type 2 diabetes. Well, then Mounjaro went on national back order. And then when Mounjaro went on national back order, people started switching over to Trulicity, which is what I was on. And now all of a sudden, I couldn't get Trulicity. I could not get my medication. In my mind, I was upset. I was genuinely upset because I needed Trulicity to stay alive. That was the way I thought, was I needed Trulicity to stay alive. And here was a bunch of people who were overweight taking my product to lose weight. And I thought, why don't you guys just stop eating so much? That medication is for people who are going to die without it. I'm going to die. That was the way that I felt. Very selfish, I know. In retrospect, in hindsight, that was one of the most selfish things I could have, but I thought I needed it to live. What I didn't understand was that neither myself nor the obese person who was using Trulicity needed the product at all. See, they're glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists, GLP-1. Your body produces GLP-1, and all those are doing is getting your body to produce more. Why do we need something to make our bodies produce more? Because we aren't eating the things that make our bodies do it naturally. That's what we need to do. Now, we heard time and time again, just, eat better, eat wiser, make better choices. As a relatively unhealthy person, but before type 2 diabetes, I had heard that. You got to make better choices. And I was like, well, I guess, what does that mean? No more Burger King, but I can go to Subway? Is that what I need to do? I need to start making the veggie sandwich at Subway? That was I didn't know what more healthy was. My wife could be a vegetarian. She's not, but she could be a vegetarian. Does this mean that I need to be a vegetarian or a vegan? I'm a professional competitive barbecue cook. I love to cook meat. I love to eat meat. Does that mean I can't ever enjoy meat again? I like pizza. I love pizza. Does that mean I can never have pizza again? I have to go I have to be like a rabbit? That's literally the way that I was thinking. No. None of this is true. But nobody ever explained it to me. So what I'm going to do in this live stream is I'm going to go through the 3-step protocol that is the Feel Great system. I'm going to lay out what it is that makes this thing work. And I'm by no means ever going to suggest that anybody has to buy any sort of supplements. However, I do, and I'm going to explain why I do as I'm going, okay? So throughout this, and actually, I forgot something. It's been a little while. I've normally got the supplements at hand, but I forgot them. So now I have them in my hand. Okay, so let's start with what is the problem? What causes the problem? What causes obesity? What causes type 2 diabetes? What causes erectile dysfunction? What causes polycystic ovarian syndrome? I'm going to show a screen here. Let's talk about this guy right here, Dr. Benjamin Bikman. Dr. Ben Bikman wrote a book called Why We Get Sick, an amazing book. I highly suggest everybody read it, okay? Now, Dr. Ben Bikman is a professor of cell biology and physiology at Brigham Young University, BYU. This is his profile on BYU's website. This is byu.edu. Now, Dr. Ben Bikman understands the relationship between insulin and the cell. Now, you've heard the term insulin. You probably heard it. Your grandma or your grandpa was on insulin, right? Or your uncle is on insulin. You don't need insulin. I don't need insulin. Well, this conversation isn't about me. I'm just a little fat. I don't need insulin, right? That's what I thought. We need to understand the relationship between insulin and cell. And that's what Dr. Ben Bikman does. If you go down, read his biography and his research interests, this is very, very interesting. The focus of my lab, the Laboratory of Obesity and Metabolism, is twofold. First, we aim to identify the molecular mechanisms that explain the increased risk of disease that accompanies weight gain, with particular emphasis on the etiology of insulin resistance and disrupted mitochondrial function. Insulin resistance. Second, we hope to reveal novel cellular processes that are responsible for fat development and accrual, with a particular emphasis on white-brown fat and the contrasting effects of insulin and ketones. Insulin. What do we know about insulin? That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, his education, he received both his bachelor and his master's from BYU. He got his doctor of philosophy in bioenergetics from East Carolina University. Memberships, professional citizenship, the courses taught. Look at how many different courses Dr. Ben Bikman has taught about this. And in fact, he's not just teaching in the classroom, he's publishing information. He's been published over 30 times on this conversation. And you'll see all of them are about obesity and glucose intolerance. We're going to notice that obesity and glucose intolerance, they go hand in hand. And what's the common denominator between the two? Insulin. So let's understand insulin. And a lot of the information that I get is going to come from people like Dr. Ben Bikman. In fact, go to Google and type in Dr. Ben Bikman and insulin, and you will see a lot. Okay. Now, Dr. Bikman, I guess I should have said share this tab. I apologize. Go to Google and type in Dr. Ben Bikman, and you'll see how many times, I mean, the guy pops up. He's just, this is what he does. He understands that relationship better than any. He has a website called insuliniq.com. If you are type 2 diabetic, if you are overweight, if you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, if you're one of 88% of Americans who are insulin resistant, and hear that number right, 88% of us, nearly 9 out of 10 of us. And in fact, Dr. Mark Hyman is now talking about 93.4%. However you want to slice and dice it, 9 out of 10 of us have a problem. If you're one of those 9 out of 10, and trust me, you probably are one of those 9 out of 10, this website right here will help you. And I highly encourage you become a member on it. Now, you'll see that book, Why We Get Sick, same book I have right here. That will just change the way that you see the world right now. But then we've got this image right here. And what this image is doing really is it's depicting insulin resistance as the root cause for all of those problems. Stroke, heart disease, obesity, migraine headaches, dementia, osteoarthritis, childhood obesity, PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. In fact, PCOS is the number one cause for infertility amongst women in the United States. So if you know any women who are infertile, maybe because of insulin resistance. Fatty liver. So cirrhosis of the liver is a top 10 cause of death in the United States. At the top of that list is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Non-alcoholic. Forever it was alcoholic fatty liver that was the problem. Now it's non-alcoholic fatty liver. Arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, oftentimes referred to as type 3 diabetes. That's insulin resistance of the brain. Erectile dysfunction. We've got vasoconstriction, vasodilation, all sorts of things there. But let's just talk about something called autonomic neuropathy. Now, autonomic neuropathy is the number one cause for erectile dysfunction. And the number one cause for autonomic neuropathy, diabetes. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 90 to 95% of the diabetes cases are type 2, which is caused by insulin resistance. It's a pretty easy line to draw between erectile dysfunction and and insulin resistance. Sarcopenia, high blood pressure. I bet you know everybody around you that has high blood pressure, right? Type 2 diabetes. Of course, let's add in pre-diabetes. And then let's talk about some other things. What about fibromyalgia or gout or multiple sclerosis? What about possible causal links with depression, bipolar treatment disorder? Is there a link between your gut and your brain? There's a gal, Dr. Cynthia Calkin, has done amazing work on this topic, right? The tie between gut and brain. As we become more insulin sensitive, are we going to get healthier in our mind? What about skin tags around your neck or chest area? What about a darkening or discoloration of the skin around your armpits, maybe your neck, your inner thighs, maybe on your face? That's called acanthosis nigricans, caused by insulin resistance. So all of these different things caused by insulin resistance, what are we doing about it? We're taking medication for each one of those symptoms. You're taking a medication for your type 2 diabetes. You're taking a medication for your heart disease. You're taking a medication, a little blue pill for your erectile dysfunction. You're probably taking metformin for your polycystic ovarian syndrome. You're taking ibuprofen for your migraines. Maybe you're on a heavier hitting one, right? But we're taking a medication for those symptoms. Maybe you're taking a medication for your obesity, something like Zepbound or Wegovy or Rybelsus, right? One of these GLP-1 receptor agonists. We're taking medications for the symptoms, but we're never doing anything about the root cause. And what's causing the root cause? Insulin resistance. So let's talk about what is insulin resistance. I like to start with what is insulin. Let's have a good understanding of what insulin is. First off, insulin is the most active hormone in your body. Boom. Most active hormone in your body. You probably thought it was estrogen or testosterone or something, maybe thyroids. Insulin. Insulin touches every single cell in your body. It's the most active hormone there is. When it starts to not function properly, we got a problem. So what is insulin? So when we consume a carbohydrate, something like a slice of bread, right? Our body converts that carbohydrate to sugar, glucose. And that glucose goes out to our bloodstream, and that's what our cells use for energy. That's their fuel source. Now, the cell is locked. It doesn't just get the glucose. The glucose doesn't just go into it. The cell is, in fact, locked. So how does it get unlocked? Well, your pancreas secretes a hormone called insulin. And one of the jobs, again, it's the most active hormone in your body, one of the jobs of that hormone is to act like a gatekeeper or a key. It kind of unlocks the cell for the glucose to go in. Now, when the cell stops responding to the insulin, that is insulin resistance. And what happens then? Well, the glucose doesn't go away. We end up with elevated sugar in our bloodstream, elevated glucose, elevated blood sugar, hyperglycemia, whatever you want to call it. We end up with that problem. Now, what tells the pancreas? What triggers the pancreas to secrete more insulin? Blood sugar. So your pancreas secretes more insulin. It's trying to get the cells to unlock. And eventually it will. It's just going to take more insulin than it did yesterday, more than it did the day before that, more than it did the day before that. See, it's taking more and more and more insulin to unlock the cell. So as we're becoming more and more hyperglycemic, we are also becoming more and more and more hyperinsulinemic, or elevated insulin. And that hyperinsulinemia, that elevated insulin, is what's causing the cells to become resistant. So if you want to reverse the insulin resistance, and by default then deal with all of those other problems, then start by lowering your insulin. If you lower your insulin, you will start to sensitize your cells, resensitize your cells. If you resensitize your cells, you'll reverse that insulin resistance, and voila, everything starts to get better. You start becoming more metabolically functional, more metabolically healthy. And when you do that, you start to lose weight. When you do that, your type 2 diabetes becomes much more manageable, or possibly even reversed. Maybe your ED goes away, your low T. If you're a guy and you're dealing with low T, your testosterone starts to rise again. All of these things, because we're metabolically dysfunctional. Now, why are we metabolically dysfunctional? Let's talk about our food choices. Absolutely because of our food choices. Highly processed foods. What happens? What brings insulin out is a spike in the glucose. What spikes the glucose? Our food choices. Let me grab a drink here. What spikes the glucose is our food choices. So let's talk about that. How many people, I'm gonna just lay this day out. And I'm curious, as you're listening to me, if you'd like, maybe type, "Good morning, Tracy. How are you?" Yes, I can, Tracy. I apologize. Yes, I can. Good morning. I'm sorry, I didn't have my chat box open. By the way, interact with me if you could. I love interacting with people. I forgot to open my chat box. I'm curious, and you can type something in the comment section, or don't. Maybe just think about it to yourself. But is this relatable? It's you today or yesterday or something. You wake up in the morning with a sugary cup of coffee. What does that do? When you have that sugary cup of coffee, because that was me for a very long time, 25 years I did that. Wake up and I used a lot of cream and sugar in my coffee because I like sweet coffee. What is that really doing? Well, the first thing in the morning, I'm spiking my glucose. I'm spiking it high. It takes about 4 grams of sugar in your bloodstream to make your body work. That's about a little more than half of a teaspoon. How much sugar was I putting in each cup of coffee? A tablespoon? 2 tablespoons? A lot. A lot. I mean, I would just pour it in there. I have no idea. I never measured it, but it was a lot. What is that doing to my blood glucose right out the gate? I'm spiking my sugar, right? What comes out to put the sugar away? My insulin. So right out the gate, I've spiked my insulin. From the moment that I wake up, I spike my insulin. Now, if you are insulin resistant, as I mentioned, 88% of Americans are, then it takes 6 or more hours for your insulin levels to come out of that hyperinsulinemic state. And I would ask, as a society, do we ever give our bodies 6 or more hours to bring that insulin level down? And the answer is most likely no. Probably relatable for you, right? Because when we go from the cup of coffee, the sugary coffee, we go over and grab a slice of toast. Going toast with butter, maybe some sugary jam on it. Maybe you think, I don't do that. I do a bagel. For some reason, we have this perception that bagels are a healthy breakfast, right? 55 carbohydrates in a bagel. Think about how much sugar that is. Boom. Maybe you go for the bacon and eggs with a starchy hash brown and a slice of toast. with the sugary jam and your sugary coffee, but you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to have a glass of orange juice, which is just sugar water. Or maybe you go and have a bowl of cereal. Think about how much sugar's in cereal. Think about how much sugar's in your oatmeal. These aren't good oats. These are highly refined oats. This isn't good. What are we doing right out the gate? We're spiking our sugar, which then spikes our insulin. And then what are we taught? I was taught 30 to 60 carbs for breakfast and then a 15 carb snack between breakfast and lunch. So as my insulin, remember it takes 6 hours for it to come down. As it's coming down, I'm going to grab a snack. More glucose, I'm going to respike that insulin. So my insulin's going to stay in that hyperinsulinemic state. And then as it starts to come down, I'm going to go grab a bite to eat. Now, because I haven't been taught what foods are good, I'm going to go over to Subway because that's the healthier place, right? Subway is better than McDonald's, right? They've convinced an entire population that eating a loaf of bread for lunch is healthy. What does that loaf of bread do? Spikes your glucose. And when you spike your glucose, we're spiking our insulin. And then your insulin's trying to come down. And how many people struggle midday? It's mid-afternoon, midday. They're not making it. They're going to take a nap. I need to sleep. I'm so exhausted. What do? We turn to a Coca-Cola or a Mountain Dew, maybe more sugary coffee. My old go-to was a bag of chips and a soda. More sugar, more of a spike, more insulin. And then I would get home, and in my household, my wife and I tried to make healthy meals for our family. We didn't want our kids eating trash, so we would make stuff at home so that wasn't so highly processed, right? Things like mashed potatoes from whole potatoes. I would take the actual potato and make mashed potatoes at home. It was more effort, but it was worth it for my family. I didn't know that I was doing it wrong. In fact, we fed our kids apple juice. That's just straight sugar water. I thought it was a better solution. It's just straight sugar water. It's not good. Mashed potatoes for dinner. Or we'd have French dip, sandwiches, bread. Everything revolved around carbohydrates. And then at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. We're getting ready to wind it down a little bit. I just want something sweet. A cookie, a scoop of ice cream. And what I've really done is illustrated how easy it is for us to wake up in the morning and have a cup of sugary coffee, spike our glucose, which then spikes our insulin. Remember, that's the problem. And keep ourselves in that hyperinsulinemic state from dawn until dusk, until we go to bed. And then we wake up the next morning, lather, rinse, repeat. We do that same thing. Now, if you did this one time, that's not good for you, but your body can recover pretty quick. But when did you start that habit? For me, it took 25 years of doing that. I did that for 25 years, at least, maybe 30. And when you keep your body in that hyperinsulinemic state for 3 decades, every single day, your cells become insulin resistant. And when they become insulin resistant, we start to see all of these problems. So that's how we get here. That's how we got to here. Now, insulin is a store of fat. So maybe I don't have diabetes, right? Well, when the cell becomes resistant to the insulin has to store the glucose somewhere. It's going to store it in the form of fat. So if you just have weight to lose, guess what? Boom. Looks like we got people on Twitter as well as Twitch. Thank you for watching. Stay involved. I hope you guys are getting valuable information from this. If you are getting valuable information from this, then share this with somebody. Tell somebody about this call, about this Zoom, or about this live stream, okay? I'm going to do these every single Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Wherever you are, look for me the same time here, whatever platform you're on. Right now, this is being live streamed across Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. This is going across a lot of different platforms. Rumble, DL Live. We're live on 9 different platforms right now. So wherever you're at, share this with somebody else and let's get them involved in the conversation. Now, I want to get back on track. I mentioned the Unicity field rate system. I want to talk about the 3 parts that are the field rate system. I'm going to talk about them individually. And when we pair the 3 together, we get amazing results. But I'm also going to talk about why they work. And if you understand why they work, then you'll understand you don't need to buy any supplements at all. You never did. You didn't need to yesterday. You don't need to tomorrow. These are just a tool. They're a very helpful tool, and they help bridge the gap between what we should be eating and what we are eating. So if you're interested in those tools, then get with the person who sent you to this live stream. Okay, there are a lot of people sending people over to this live stream. Get with the person who sent you to this live stream, and they will tell you how to order the products. And if you don't have somebody, if you just stumbled across my live stream, then send me a direct message and I'll tell you how to order them yourself. Okay, so with that being said, step 1 of the protocol is intermittent fasting, a 16 and 8 time-based eating schedule. Now that's minimum, 16 and 8. You can go more if you'd like. I oftentimes do. But let's talk about 16 and 8 intermittent fasting, time-based eating. What does that really mean, 16 and 8? That means that out of a 24-hour day, I don't eat for 16 hours. I give my body a break for 16 hours. Now, for me personally, between 8 p.m. and noon the following day, I don't eat. The level of commitment that I'm talking about is skipping breakfast. I'm not talking about going for days on end. In fact, you could go for days on end. The world record for the longest medically supervised fast was 382 days. You can skip breakfast. Okay? Everybody thinks, I can't do that. Yes, you can. A little willpower. Work on it. You can skip breakfast. Now, what am I really doing there? At 8 p.m., I've had dinner. I don't need to eat anymore. If I'm eating, it's habit eating. It's looking for that cookie or that ice cream or that bag of chips. It's a habit, and that habit is not good. Stop it. At 8 p.m., I'm done eating. Now, between 8 p.m. and noon, I skip breakfast. I avoid sugar at all costs. I don't have sugary coffee. This is not a dry fast. You can have water, coffee, black coffee, green tea, black tea, unsweetened, of course. We can drink things, water-based products, no problem. Just no sugars. And at noon, I can break my fast. And between the hours of noon and 8, I allow myself 2 meals. Now, this seems extreme. Like you're thinking, wow, only 2 meals. I've been having 8 per day every day for the last 30 years. That's why you're listening to me. Because you've been doing what you've been doing for so long. Let's talk about cutting it down to 2 meals. And you might be thinking, I'm going to starve. No, because you're never hearing me talk about calorie restriction. Eat until you're full. Eat a big enough meal that's filling enough that you're not going to need another meal until your next one. Get full on nutritious foods that are good for us. I'll tell you what, the things like white bread, the highly processed carbohydrates, white bread, potato chips, your Dr. Pepper, these types of things, they make you hungry faster. When you eat them, you're going to want to eat again sooner. And if you don't think that's by design, you're mistaken. The food manufacturing company or the food industry wants to make you hungry. They're not interested in making you feel full. They want you to be hungry. If they make you feel full, you'll stop spending money. They want you to be hungry. So when you eat things like that, those highly processed foods, you're going to come back. So if the idea of I'm not going to make it between 2 meals, eat a larger meal that's nutritious. Vegetables, whole uncut meats, right? Unprocessed foods, minimally processed foods. Get away from the highly processed, and you'll find yourself with better energy, and you won't feel like you're starving. It's amazing how easily that'll work. So the logic behind this, I want to talk about a gentleman, Dr. Elliot Jocelyn. And maybe you haven't heard of Dr. Jocelyn, but maybe you've heard of Dr. or Jocelyn Diabetes Center. Sorry, I'm looking at 2 pages here. You only see one. Jocelyn Diabetes Center. Jocelyn Diabetes Center has been improving the lives of diabetes patients since 1893. Now, this is Dr. Elliot Jocelyn. Dr. Elliot Jocelyn graduated med school in the 1800s. Pretty long time ago. When he graduated med school, type 2 diabetes was incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. The majority of the people that had diabetes were type 1 diabetics. And type 1 today even is extremely rare. So diabetes as a whole was extremely rare. There was no reason for a doctor to specialize in diabetes. However, when Dr. Jocelyn graduated med school, he would find out that both his aunt and his mother had diabetes. And for that reason, Dr. Jocelyn decided to specialize in it. He was one of the first. Now, what Dr. Jocelyn thought more than a century ago was the way to manage your diabetes was through strict glucose control and intermittent fasting. Strict glucose control. We know that's true. If you're listening to me and you're a diabetic, or if you're listening to me and you're not a diabetic, you know that the diabetic next to you, that person next to you, has to really watch their sugar. We know this. So what Dr. Jocelyn told us 100 plus years ago, we know is true. But the other part of that, intermittent fasting, we didn't listen to. And in fact, Dr. Jocelyn would write of the treatment of diabetes mellitus in 1916. The temporary periods of undernutrition are helpful in the treatment of diabetes will probably be acknowledged by all after these 2 years of experience with fasting. Now, what was Dr. Jocelyn telling us more than 100 years ago was that this wasn't that big of a deal. It really wasn't. If we would just stop eating so frequently, the problem would kind of go away. But we didn't listen to him. In fact, it wasn't long after that we would discover insulin. And in 2022, the global human insulin drug market was estimated to be $45 billion. In 2030, it's estimated to surpass $84 billion. Now, I want to play a video of my favorite guy, Dr. Ben Bickman, talking about insulin therapy with type 2 diabetics. Because we don't go from extremely rare to $45 billion unless we're giving it to type 2 diabetics. Right? This is on my TikTok. If you're on TikTok, give me a follow. It's at The Healthy Pitmaster or at The Real Gym BBQ and The Healthy Pitmaster on every social media platform. In fact, wherever you're listening to me right now, look at the Healthy Pitmaster is the name on the channel, and at The Real Gym BBQ would be the link. You can find me on every social media platform by searching the exact same thing. I have a lot of video content on my TikTok, including this video right here, which is Dr. Ben Bickman talking about the dangers of insulin therapy with type 2 diabetics.
But regardless, because we have a glucose-centric view of the disease, essentially the clinician is saying, well, to heck with your insulin. Who cares if we push it up even higher? They might not even know where it is. All they know is if they push the insulin up even higher, the glucose will in fact come down. And because that's the target, the glucose, they believe they're achieving the optimal outcome. However, it's much more complicated and sinister than that. The more aggressively we're giving the type 2 diabetic insulin to control their glucose, the faster we kill them. They are 3 times more likely to die from heart disease and twice as likely to die from cancer and twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. And throughout all of it, they need more and more and more insulin, because they're becoming ever more resistant to it.
How interesting is that, huh? When we're done with this live stream, if you're interested in watching some videos, my TikTok is full of them. I've got a lot of those videos on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. I've got a lot of different content depending on what platform I'm posting on. I've stopped doing videos to Twitter and Facebook and those, but you can find a lot of the videos on those. If you're looking for just video content, TikTok is the best place. Live stream content, I'm going live every single week on this channel. We also do a Wednesday night science call, which is fascinating. Come join us wherever you're at right now, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Join us Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on this channel, and you'll find some great live stream happening that night as well. But anyway, go looking through my channel on TikTok if you're looking for video content, and you'll see that it's all commonly themed. Now, I want to talk about this guy right here, Dr. Jason Fung. Maybe you've heard of Dr. Fung. Dr. Fung is a nephrologist out of Toronto, Canada. Dr. Fung studies kidneys. Now, why did I just shift from type 2 diabetes and insulin to kidneys? Well, Dr. Jason Fung found a relationship between insulin resistance and poor kidney health. And he thought that if he could reverse the insulin resistance, that it would have a profound effect on the kidneys. Now, Dr. Jason Fung has written a lot of books, one of which I love to talk about. It's called Life in the Fasting Lane. We're talking about intermittent fasting right now. This book right here will change your life. In fact, actually, one of the co-authors in this book not only had type 2 diabetes, but she had PCOS and she was infertile. In listening to Dr. Fung, which, by the way, Dr. Jason Fung went to the work of Dr. Elliot Jocelyn from more than 100 years ago, strict glucose control and intermittent fasting. And listening to Dr. Fung, this co-author not only reversed her type 2 diabetes, but she also reversed her PCOS and then her infertility. Her and her husband have had children the all-natural, good old-fashioned fun way. Dr. Fung isn't just helping people restore their lives and their health. He's helping them create new ones. And that is absolutely beautiful. Now, what is he doing? He's telling people a very strict, low-carb, high-fat diet. And of course, if carbs convert to glucose, it makes perfect sense. Get rid of the carbs. If we get rid of the carbs, we minimize that glucose. We then minimize the insulin. We start to resensitize the cells to the insulin, right? And then high fat. Now, there's an interesting one, right? We've been taught for how many years to go high carb and low fat. Around 1980, we were told that we should have 11 servings of carbohydrates per day and get away from the high saturated fat, the things like the ribeye steak. That's awful for you. Go for a very lean meat. Go for low fat. Don't have regular ranch dressing. Get the light or fat-free ranch dressing, right? We've been taught, get away from the whole milk, go to the skim milk. We've been taught to avoid the higher fat products and increase our carbs. High carb, low fat. And what have we done as a society since then? We've gotten fatter. We've gotten more type 2 diabetes. We've gotten more Alzheimer's disease. We've had so many other problems are on the rise. We're not getting healthier. What Dr. Fung is talking about is the opposite, low carb, high fat, maybe what we were supposed to be doing all along. Dr. Fung also wrote the diabetes code, which is fascinating, the obesity code, the cancer code. He's written cookbooks. If you're interested in cooking ideas, the Diabetes Code Cookbook. Dr. Jason Fung is a multiple best-selling author. I encourage you give both Dr. Fung as well as Dr. Ben Bikman. Remember this guy, Dr. Ben Bikman, a follow on every major social media platform. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on YouTube. Give them a follow, listen to them speak. Read their writings. These guys are brilliant. They're helping us get healthy the all-natural way. So, in summary, I'm going to talk about a 3-step protocol. The first step is intermittent fasting. Now, I just talked a lot about keto, and while I am not strict keto, I do get it. I would say that I generally practice probably more of a keto diet than not. But I'm not strict keto. I had spaghetti for dinner last night. I loved spaghetti. I've always liked spaghetti, good spaghetti. I don't have it very frequently because those carbs aren't really good for my body like I thought they were forever. but I still enjoy it. So I'm certainly not able to fit into the keto diet range. However, step one of the protocol is intermittent fasting, 16 and 8 time-based eating schedule. I'm going to move on to step 2 of the protocol, which is something called chlorogenic acid. Now, what is chlorogenic acid? Chlorogenic acid is a naturally occurring polyphenol in our foods. We can find it's one of the most abundant polyphenols, in fact, in the world. We can find chlorogenic acid in certain fruits, certain vegetables, nuts, seeds, green tea, black tea, yerba mate tea. Maybe you've heard of yerba mate tea. Chlorogenic acid is most abundant in nature in a green coffee bean. Green being unroasted, right? It's right after you've harvested it, green coffee bean. So oftentimes people go, where do I get green coffee? It's an unroasted coffee bean. And in certain cultures, they don't roast it. They drink green coffee tea. There you go. So it is most abundant in green coffee. Now, green coffee bean. I want to look for a page here on my... Here we go. Let's share this tab. I went to Google and typed, what food has the most chlorogenic acid? Chlorogenic acid is a natural antioxidant found in a variety of fruits and vegetables. Studies have shown that consuming foods high in chlorogenic acid can help reduce the risk of developing cancer. Foods high in chlorogenic acid include black coffee, apples, grapefruit, strawberries. Now, let's talk a lot about chlorogenic acid. Now, I talked earlier about getting away from the highly processed foods. As we're talking about chlorogenic acid, I want you thinking to yourself, when I have coffee, do I drink it in its natural state or do I add sugar, something to wash away the effects of chlorogenic acid? Do I have enough apples, strawberries, blueberries? Do I have enough lettuce? Do I have enough cruciferous vegetables? Do I have enough of those things? Or am I eating the highly processed foods? Because if you had enough of those things, all of these other benefits that you'll get from chlorogenic acid, your body would have more chlorogenic acid, you'd get those benefits. So let's talk about this. This is a study that I found on PubMed. This is an official website of the United States government, NIH.gov. The effects of chlorogenic acid on blood pressure. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials. Now, oftentimes people like to go and read these for themselves, and I encourage you to. If you go to Google and type what I just highlighted into Google, PubMed ID, okay, I want to make sure that I've got the right page up here that I'm sharing, 24943289. As we scroll down, in conclusion, the evidence from published randomized clinical trials suggests that chlorogenic acid intake causes statistically significant reductions in systolic and diastolic blood pressures. We have proof, and this is strong proof, a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials. This is very strong proof that chlorogenic acid helps lower blood pressure. Now, over the last year and a half, I've been talking a lot about the Unicity product. And one of the first things people say to me is, man, my blood pressure, it dropped. It's normal now. It's in the normal range, and it happened quick, like really quick. It's shocking. I'll get to the product here in just a moment, but consuming more chlorogenic acid will help lower your blood pressure. Did I? Yes, okay. There we go. I want to share this page. Chlorogenic acid improves, and this again from NIH PubMed, chlorogenic acid improves glucose tolerance, lipid metabolism, inflammation, and microbiota composition in diabetic mice. Just break this one down. Improves glucose tolerance. 88% of us have that problem, right? Lipids metabolism, high cholesterol, inflammation. How many people do you know have inflammation? And diabetes. Now let's scroll down to the results. The results showed that chlorogenic acid decreased body weight, so it aided in weight loss, and improved glucose tolerance and insulin resistance, so it helped promote insulin sensitivity. And these effects were similar to those of metformin. Metformin is the most commonly prescribed medication for type 2 diabetes. 2022, I believe, I could be off by a year, 92 million people in the United States were on metformin. And chlorogenic acid, according to this, acts in a very similar way. Where do we get chlorogenic acid again? Certain fruits, certain vegetables, certain nuts, certain seeds, green tea, black tea. I'm going to talk about yerba mate tea here in a moment. Black coffee, green coffee beans is the most abundant resource on earth. This one is just going to kind of reaffirm that. This is from PubMed Central. Roles of chlorogenic acid on regulating glucose and lipids metabolism. This is a review. There's your PubMed Central ID as well as your PubMed ID. Okay. Let's scroll down a little ways here to, you could read the entire thing. I'm not going to read the entire thing on this live stream. Oops, and I've already gone too far. I apologize. It's around here somewhere. I'm just trying to make you dizzy. Here we go. For example, it is reported that daily consumption of 3 to 4 cups of decaffeinated coffee containing high contents of chlorogenic acid significantly reduced the risk for type 2 diabetes by 30%. Big number, real big number. Chlorogenic acid is a novel insulin sensitizer that potentiates insulin action similar to the therapeutic action of metformin. There's that word again, metformin. How about this one? Let's talk about GLP-1s. Let's talk about glucagon-like peptide 1. That is an incretin hormone that's produced in your gut. Your body makes GLP-1. Now, chlorogenic acid induces GLP-1, as this paper suggests. Why is our GLP-1 down? Do you eat enough apples? Do you eat enough fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds? You drinking enough green tea, black tea, yerba mate tea? When you drink your black coffee, is it black or does it have sugar in it? Why is our body low on GLP-1? Because we aren't eating the proper foods. So those GLP-1 receptor agonists, things like Ozempic, Mounjaro, Trulicity, Saxenda, maybe the weight loss version of them, Wegovy or Zepbound, the oral version, Ribelsis, all of those, what are they doing? They are agitating your body into producing more GLP-1, something that chlorogenic acid does naturally. So what are we doing? Rather than saying, hey, eat more of these all-natural foods, we're suggesting we just poke ourselves with a needle once a week. And that doesn't make sense. Now, those needles, by the way, don't come without side effects. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. In fact, I'm going to do this. We're going to go here. We're going to type in physician's desk reference into Google, and it will take us to this link, pdr.net. That is the physician's desk reference. Technically, it's the prescriber's digital reference. If you click on that link right there, it will take you to the PDR, the prescriber's digital reference. It's part of the physician's desk reference suite of goods. You don't need a subscription to this. Everybody has access to this. Type in the word Ozempic. Hit search now, and we're going to scroll down when it pops up here. We're going to scroll down and see, there it is, semaglutide, the drug summary, and right away, boxed warning, thyroid cancer, thyroid C-cell tumors. Let's go over here and type in Ozempic.com. Go to their website. Right away, down at the bottom, possible thyroid tumors, including cancer. Let's look at Mounjaro. Manjaro.com. Down at the bottom, warnings. Manjaro may cause tumors in the thyroid, including thyroid cancer. What about Trulicity? Down at the bottom, Trulicity may cause tumors in the thyroid, including thyroid cancer. All of them, guys, all of them have that potential side effect. Now, why do I bring that up? Let's get back to here. Chlorogenic acid-induced increase in GLP-1 production may mediate the impact of heavy coffee consumption on diabetes risk. And scroll down. Indeed, there is recent evidence that coffee increases production of the incretin hormone glucagon-like peptide 1. All natural, plant-based, no side effects in the foods that we're eating or not eating, as it may be. PubMed ID. I forgot to tell you that. If you wanted to, PubMed ID 15694706. I want to talk about this guy right here. This is Dr. Andrew Huberman. Maybe you've heard of Dr. Andrew Huberman. Maybe you have not. But this is his profile on Stanford Medicine. This is med.stanford.edu. This guy, if you haven't heard of him, you should be giving him a follow on every major social media platform. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Find him and follow him. Read him, listen to him. We'll see that he is an associate professor of neurobiology at Stanford. He's a brain guy. Now, he received his bachelor's from the University of California, Santa Barbara, his master's from the University of California, Berkeley, his PhD from the University of California, Davis, and his postdoctorate came from Stanford University. This guy is brilliant, quite brilliant. Why do I talk about him?
A guy down in South America was looking at Gila monsters, those really scary things, and he realized they don't have to eat very often. I wonder if they're hungry all the time or not. Turns out it takes their blood, isolates a peptide, which turns out to be GLP-1, puts it into other animals, and realizes it suppresses appetite. Amazing, right? Like this is what I love about biology. Some dude who studies Gila monsters. Turns out humans make GLP-1. GLP-1 is stimulated by things like yerba mate tea. Certain other compounds, plant compounds, stimulate its release. But what does it do in the hypothalamus? It suppresses hunger by way of, there's a particular brain arcuate pathway, blah, blah, blah. But it also affects the mechanosensors of the gut so that you feel like your gut's full. Like it's almost like you're getting like a pharmacologic tummy, stapled stomach, right? So when people take a drug that mimics GLP-1, their brain is like, well, I'm not as hungry, and their stomach feels full even though it's empty. The guy down.
How about that? GLP-1 is stimulated by things like yerba mate tea. Now, if you would like to increase your chlorogenic acid, you were just told a very easy way to do it. Also, start increasing your go to Google and just ask Google what foods contain chlorogenic acid. And now oftentimes people ask, how much should I take? Just take more. Don't worry about a quantity. Just eat more. You're not going to like overdo it. Just eat more. Focus on eating more of that and getting away from those highly processed foods. Now, I said I was going to talk about the supplement that I take. Okay. And it's called Unimate. You can't really see me now. Let me do this. Unimate. Okay. Now, what is Unimate? Let me find this page here. Bear with me a moment. This is Unicity's product page on Unimate. Tells you all the features and benefits. Okay. But what I really want to do is I want to talk about Dr. Ben Bickman. And I'm going to need to find out a way. I didn't think about this ahead of time. Oh, dang it. See, I goofed up. This is what I get. I want to talk about Dr. Ben Bickman. Now, what is yerba mate or Unimate? Unimate is a Unamate is a yerba mate extract. Now, what Unicity does is they purchase the yerba leaf from the original farmers in South America. They're not doing GMO stuff in a different region of the world. They're still purchasing the yerba mate leaf from those original farmers in South America. By the way, the yerba leaf, let me talk about that a little bit. Yerba mate has been widely consumed for 500 to 1,000 years in South America. It's been pretty heavily industrialized in North America for about the last 120 years. Now, the indigenous people of the regions that are now Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay would say that yerba mate made them feel full. It gave them an amazing boost of energy. They refer to it as the drink of the gods. Now, that really is the only place in the world that yerba leaf is grown. Now, this is Dr. Ben Bickman. Dang it. I'm going to try and get to this video of him. If I can quit pushing the wrong button, I apologize. Oh, dang it. I know what I'm doing wrong here. I'm going to play a video of Dr. Ben Bickman talking about Unamate. Now, if you don't remember Dr. Ben Bickman, that's this guy right here, professor of cell biology and physiology at BYU. There are a few people, if any, that understand the relationship between insulin and cell quite like Dr. Ben Bickman. Now, this, you'll find it on my TikTok, and a good friend of mine, Shannon, did a masterful piece, a great video on Unamate.
Okay, a lot of people are into these Ozempic and weight loss drugs. If you're on or considering them, you might want to watch this. I don't know if you follow Dr. Andrew Huberman, but he was just on Joe Rogan, and he was basically saying, why take Ozempic when you can do the same thing naturally with no side effects using yerba mate?
Turns out humans make GLP-1. GLP-1 is stimulated by things like yerba mate tea. Certain other compounds, plant compounds, stimulate its release. But what does it do in the hypothalamus? It suppresses hunger.
This is the highest, most concentrated version of yerba mate I've found on the planet. And one of the top scientists in the world when it comes to insulin resistance did a study on this yerba mate.
That I'll be sharing at a meeting in March in Las Vegas is that this yerba mate supplement called Unamate also increases GLP-1. We found in this experiment we did, the GLP.
Get those little skin tags around your neck or chest area. What the heck? I don't know how that just happened.
A lot of people are into these planet. And one of the top study on this yerba mate.
I'm sorry,
I'll be sharing at a meeting in March in Las Vegas is that this yerba mate supplement called Unamate also increases GLP-1. We found in this experiment we did, the GLP-1 levels went up by about 70% in a fasted state, which is pretty considerable.
This does the same.
So, when I say that I drink a lot of Unamate, Unamate contains about 20 times the chlorogenic acid of a typical cup of yerba mate. It contains about 10 times the chlorogenic acid of a typical cup of coffee. It is very elevated in chlorogenic acid. In fact, what they do is they take that yerba leaf, they're still buying it from those original farmers. They fire roast it in a very similar way to the way that it's always been done, but then they stop the traditional process and they extract the good things like chlorogenic acid and theobromine. We'll save theobromine, which is wonderful for you, for another conversation. And then they cleanse it, they purify it, they get rid of the things that we don't want, things like pesticides and heavy metals that occur naturally in plants. They get rid of those things and then they concentrate it. To the best of my knowledge, there is not a higher form of concentration of chlorogenic acid anywhere than this. So what I do first thing in the morning is I wake up and I drink my Unamate. I drink it hot. You can drink it cold if you want. They send you a little bottle. I don't use the bottle for my Unamate. I use my Yeti tumbler. My wife uses one of those Stanley 32-ounce things. We just dump it in there and we add some hot water and we sip on it. But if you like cold drinks, you can drink it cold. The idea is to sip on it. What you're going to notice is chlorogenic acid is an appetite suppressant. It's going to lower your want to eat. Remember, we're fasting in the morning. It helps. It'll give you an amazing boost of energy. It clears that brain fog. And maybe you don't even realize you have that brain fog. Start drinking this and you will realize, like, man, I feel crisp right now. I feel wonderful. How many times do you walk into a room and think, oh man, I forgot what I was doing here? That goes away. Most importantly, it's sensitizing your cells to the insulin. It's a novel insulin sensitizer. So what we do first thing in the morning, crack one of these open and start drinking it. When I drank that first one, I just open a second one. I drink a second one. Right now, I'm actually drinking my second one. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning here in Denver. I'm probably about here on this. This will last me until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When I go to eat lunch, when I go to break my fast, you're going to find with all that added GLP-1, your appetite is just less. GLP-1 is an appetite suppressant. As you just heard Dr. Huberman say, you're going to eat less. Also, when GLP-1 is elevated, glucose and insulin are reduced. So when we go to eat, we're going to eat less, and it's going to help our glucose control. It's wonderful. That's the first product that I take. So step 1 is intermittent fasting. Step 2 is consuming more chlorogenic acid. You can do this all naturally through the grocery store. If you'd like the supplement, get with the person who sent you to this live stream, and they'll tell you how to order the product. By the way, don't order the product on Amazon or something like that. It's not authorized for sale. Be careful. This is food. Please don't order the product elsewhere. That's not good for you. They do not authorize the sale of their product on Amazon or eBay or any of those websites. Walmart, it's not authorized for sale. You'll find them there. There are teams from Unicity who are actively trying to stop the sale of their products there. Unicity, they don't authorize, so don't go there, okay? Now, with that being said, let's move on to step 3 of the protocol. Let me get this here. Okay. Step 3 is increasing your fiber. Found this article on PubMed Central, and I just think it's fascinating. Closing America's fiber intake gap. In the abstract, I'm just going to read the first sentence of the abstract. Adequate intake of dietary fiber is associated with digestive health and reduced risk for heart disease, stroke, hypertension, certain gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. However, national consumption surveys indicate that only about 5% of the population meets recommendations. 95% of us are not getting our recommended daily intake. Now, all of those things that you just heard that it helps, digestive health, reduced risk for heart disease, stroke, hypertension, all of those things come back to this, insulin resistance. Fiber helps our bodies regulate its glucose naturally. And if we can regulate our glucose, then we can regulate our insulin. If we regulate our insulin, we start to hold the cards. That's what you want to do. You want to hold the cards, right? When you're not regulating your insulin, you're not. You're just free falling. So let's increase our fiber. Why are 95% of Americans not getting their recommended daily intake of fiber? It's absolutely because of the foods that we're eating. All those highly processed foods, they don't have fiber in them. Or if they do have fiber, you see these things, these carb zero tortillas or carb zero breads. Oftentimes they're using seed oils to make them taste like a regular product. And those seed oils cause inflammation, which guess what? Leads to the problem. Get away from the highly processed foods. Eat whole foods. What gives us chlorogenic acid? Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, green tea, black tea. What gives us fiber? The produce section. Go over to the produce section and get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. In the produce section, let's stick to skin-on, less sweet fruits, okay? And there's going to be an exception to the skin-on rule, but skin-on. I want to consume the skin of the fruit. An apple has the skin. I want to consume the skin. There's a lot of fiber there. There's a lot of polyphenols like chlorogenic acid. A pear, I want to consume the skin. I want to minimize the skin off. Things like oranges, bananas, those really sweet fruits, the tropical fruits, let's minimize those. I don't want the banana police coming to me, right? So just minimize those. I'm not saying eliminate them, but if you are a type 2 diabetic, what happens to your blood sugar when you eat a banana or an orange? It probably spikes, right? So minimize them. Skin on fruits, let's stick to apples, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. Blackberries are wonderful for you. Consume those. An exception to the rule of skin off would be something like an avocado. An avocado is a superfood. You should enjoy avocados as much as possible. In fact, that Closing the Fiber Gap article I just showed you would say that the national average is 15.1 grams of fiber per day. In fact, let me bring that back up here. I'm going to bring that back up. They have a table on there that suggests how much fiber we should be getting. A child from age 1 to 3 should be getting 19 grams of fiber today. The national average for Americans is 15.1. There are 14 grams of fiber in a medium avocado. Enjoy your avocados. There's all sorts of things. Look into something called abscisic acid. Avocados have a lot of abscisic acid in them. Avocados are just an absolute wonderful food. So the skin off rule doesn't always apply. So when we're talking about skin off fruits, let's keep that to tropical fruits, right? We're going to minimize the skin off tropical fruits, things like oranges, bananas, that sort of thing. But certainly enjoy your avocados. Now, go over to the vegetable section and get a wide variety of vegetables. Get a wide variety of the leafy ones, get a wide variety of the cruciferous ones. In the vegetable section, let's stick to above ground, less starchy. That's an attack on our potato situation. We are consuming a lot of potatoes, and those potatoes, there's virtually no fiber in a cooked potato. They are high in the glycemic index, which I'll talk about here in a moment. When they're high in the glycemic index, that's causing our blood sugar to spike. And of course, what happens to our insulin when we do that? Boom, we get higher insulin as well. So minimize the potatoes. There you go. Increase your fiber there. Dr. Bickman, I've also heard now Dr. Mark Hyman say it. If the food comes in a box or a bag and has a barcode, there's a good probability it's highly processed. So if you're having a hard time spotting the highly processed foods, just look for it. If it's in a box or a bag and has a barcode, it's probably highly processed. Another way to look at it is the grocery store. The center aisles of the grocery store, that's where you'll find them. The highly processed food in the central aisles. You'll find the minimally processed foods around the outskirts of the store. The produce section, the whole uncut meat section, the dairy section. Shop those areas. Minimize the highly processed foods. Now, I want to talk about statin medications. There is some information out that's pretty crazy. I'm going to go to here. I'm kind of winging this. I hadn't planned on going here, but I'm going to. This article right here, the American Heart Association, Protecting Industry, Not Patients. This was written by Dr. Barbara Roberts in 2013, December, in fact, of 2013. In 2013, the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association made a change in their guidelines. And that's what this is about. The American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology recently released new cardiovascular disease prevention guidelines. Now, Dr. Barbara Roberts said they were an egregious example of much that is wrong with medicine today. In fact, she would say that the American Heart Association was protecting industry, not patients. Let me ask the question here, okay? And I don't like to put on the tinfoil hat, but let's just go down this path a little bit. What would happen to the American Heart Association if we eliminated heart disease? They'd go bankrupt. What would happen to the American Diabetes Association if we eliminated type 2 diabetes? They'd go bankrupt. I found this article. I went to Google and I asked, what is the glycemic index of a sweet potato? Because people generally think that sweet potatoes are a healthy alternative to a potato, right? Well, they can be. They talk about the glycemic index, low, medium, and high. High is 55 or low is 55 or less, medium is 56 to 69, high is 70 or above. Let's talk about what is the glycemic index. This is from the Mayo Clinic. This will all come full circle, by the way. This is from the Mayo Clinic, an article that I found, and they were looking at the low glycemic index. Is there something here? And I like the way that they opened this up. The glycemic index ranks food on a scale from 0 to 100. The low end of the scale has foods that have little effect on blood sugar levels. The high end of the scale has foods with a big effect on blood sugar levels. Of course, we don't want a big effect on blood sugar levels because that means we get a big effect on blood insulin levels. We don't want that, right? So we want to generally avoid foods that are high in the glycemic index because those foods will spike our glucose and then spike our insulin. We want to gravitate towards foods that are low. So what are some examples of foods that are high and what are some that are low? In this same article, they give you an idea. Foods that are low: green vegetables, most fruits, raw carrots, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils. They're all low in the glycemic index. What are foods that are high? White rice, white bread, and potatoes. And oftentimes people would ask, well, what about a sweet potato? So let's go over to this article that I found. What is the glycemic index of a sweet potato? Let's come back here. When we boil a sweet potato for 30 minutes, they have a low glycemic index value of 46. Boiled sweet potatoes are wonderful. That's a low glycemic, but boil them for 30 minutes. Because when you only boil it for 8 minutes, they have a glycemic index of 61, which is medium. It's not as good. Boil it for 30 minutes. Oftentimes people say, well, I roast my sweet potatoes. When you do that, glycemic index of 82. When you bake your sweet potato, 94. When you fry it, because oftentimes people think, well, I'm going to order the fried sweet potatoes at the restaurant rather than the fried French fries because that's better. 76, not so hot. Did you know that the American Diabetes Association has a cookbook? Ideas where you can go and get foods that'll help you manage your type 2 diabetes. On the heels of what we just learned about baked sweet potatoes, 94 in the glycemic index, this is from the American Diabetes Association. Turkey chili stuffed sweet potatoes. Looks delicious. But let's scroll down to the directions. Preheat the oven to 400 degrees and bake it for 60 minutes. Why would the American Diabetes Association recommend you spike your glucose and therefore spike your insulin? Are we to think that the American Diabetes Association doesn't know that insulin resistance is the cause? I found this on there. It's called Marir Signando, and I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation, but this looks delicious. Orange cream drink. This is again from the American Diabetes Association. Total carbohydrates, 17 grams, of which 16 come from sugars. Again, why would the American Diabetes Association recommend that we eat these foods, drink these products? Are we managing or are we trying to reverse type 2 diabetes? What does the American Diabetes Association want you to do? Manage it or reverse it? What's cost beneficial to them? Now, let's come back to this article. The American Heart Association, protecting industry, not patients. And I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs to you. The American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology recently released this is 2013, by the way, new cardiovascular disease prevention guidelines. They are an egregious example of much that is wrong with medicine today. The guidelines propose a vast expansion of use of statins in healthy people, recommending them for about 44% of men and 22% of healthy women between the ages of 40 and 75. The American Heart Association is a nonprofit organization with a mission to build healthier lives free of cardiovascular disease and stroke. Yet in its 2011-2012 financial statement, the American Heart Association noted $521 million in donations from non-government and non-membership sources and many well-known large drug companies, including those who make and market statins, contribute amounts in the $1 million range. When she said they were protecting association and not patients, what she was suggesting was that she was lining the pockets, that the American Heart Association, through those new guidelines, they were lining the pockets of their donors. Now, this is an interesting study that I found on PubMed Central. It was just done last year, 2023. Statins utilization trends and expenditures in the U.S. before and after the implementation of those guidelines. What happened to the statins usage after those guidelines? Here is your PubMed Central ID as well as your PubMed ID. Go and read this in full. It's fascinating. But the results, here we go. These are big numbers. After 2013, the number of individuals who used statins increased by 149%, from 37 million in 2012 and 13 to 92 million in 2018 and 19. The annual number of statins prescriptions increased from 461 million to 818 million, nearly doubled between 2008 and 2019. We are prescribing statins like they're like cough drops, right? Now, why does this matter? Here is an interesting study that I found on PubMed Central. Here is your PubMed Central ID as well as your PubMed ID. This was just done in July of last year. Assessing the link between statins and insulin intolerance. This is a systematic review. This is powerful research. I want to read this paragraph to you because I think it's powerful. It's the abstract. There has been mixed and inconclusive evidence regarding the relationship between statin usage and insulin intolerance. This systematic review aims to comprehensively explore the link between the use of statins and insulin intolerance. We systematically searched Medline, PubMed, PubMed Central, and Google Scholar databases for online English articles with full text. We excluded conference proceedings, editorials, commentaries, preclinical studies, abstracts, and preprints. The search across databases initially identified 667 articles. After eliminating duplicates and analyzing the remaining articles based on the inclusion and exclusion criteria, 11 articles were selected. The included studies had a total of 46,728,889 participants. The findings suggest, let's get to here. The findings suggest that the use of statins is associated with a decrease in insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. This systematic review provides evidence that the use of statins may have an adverse effect on insulin sensitivity and increase insulin resistance. These findings may have important clinical implications for individuals on statins, statin therapy, especially those at risk of developing diabetes. We have proof that statin medications are causing insulin resistance. And if they got you on a statin, 44% of healthy men and 22% of healthy women, and that statin is making us insulin resistant, what are they doing? They're opening the door for how many other medications to treat how many other symptoms. It's a business decision. If you think that the pharmaceutical industry is looking for cures rather than customers, you're wrong. You're wrong. This from PubMed Central, done in September of last year. Statins and the use, I'm sorry, that was your PubMed Central ID as well as your PubMed ID. Statins and the risk of type 2 diabetes, mechanism and clinical implications. This is just interesting. I got to scroll down quite a ways to get to the part that I want to get to here. Concluding remarks. In a meta-analysis of 15 observational studies, the risk of incident type 2 diabetes was 55%. In 4 individual studies, the risk of incident type 2 diabetes was from 36 to 48%. And in the U.S. veteran study, 21 to 22% for low and medium potency statins like pravastatin, fluvastatin, and 34% for high potency statins like simvastatin, atorvastatin, and rosuvastatin. That's what I was on, rosuvastatin. I was on a max dose of it, in fact. We've got proof, a lot of proof, showing that statin medications are causing insulin resistance. In fact, don't listen to me. Listen to Dr. Ben Bickman, my guy, again. And I'm going to go over to my TikTok profile again. And I want to play this video for you.
Cholesterol is a molecule of life. Despite our general societal fear of it, it is involved in countless processes within every cell of the body. Unfortunately, our fear or hatred of cholesterol has given rise to the use of statins, which is a general class of medication that acts to inhibit the body's ability to create cholesterol. While that is a good way, a statin, to lower your cholesterol, there are consequences to this. Here's a manuscript that was just published in the European Journal of Pharmacology, and it outlines the evidence implicating statins as a molecule or a drug that increases the risk of insulin resistance and therefore type 2 diabetes. Ironically, insulin resistance is a greater predictor and risk factor for heart disease than LDL cholesterol is. So tragically, and again, ironically, despite lowering cholesterol levels, by increasing insulin resistance, we may be making the problem even worse.
How about that? Now, why do I bring cholesterol and statin medications up? Let's talk about this. Let's go to Google and just ask Google what is the top heart hospital in the United States. And Google is going to say the Cleveland Clinic. The second product that we take, the second is called Balance. It was originally developed as BioSlife by Rexall Pharmacy in the late 80s. It's been on the market for 35 years. It's not new. It's been around for quite a while. In North America, it's now called Balance. Throughout the United Kingdom, it's called Balance. Throughout Europe, Balance. Africa, Balance. When you get to the Middle East and go to the Far East, it's called BioSlife still. Its original name of BioSlife. In fact, this product is available in over 50 countries globally. It's got more than a dozen clinical validation studies on it. But let's talk about what is Balance. Balance is a proprietary blend of 7 different fibers and a multivitamin. If you go to their product sheet, this is just from Unicity, you'll see the features and benefits on it. But there are 5 separate patents, on Balance. Why would you put 5 patents on one thing? And it's because on a blend of fiber. And I keep saying blend. I mean that very intentionally. There is a patent on the Biosphere proprietary formula, the Unicity 7X formula, the BIOS Cardio Matrix, the BIOS Vitamin Complex. And when you put them all together, there is a patent on that as well. Now, the BIOS Vitamin Complex, this is not just a blend of fiber. It's got a multivitamin added to it. So it's got like 1,040% of your vitamin B12 for the day, 410% of your vitamin B6, 160% of your niacin, 150% of your riboflavin, 170% of your thiamine, 290 of your chromium. It is a multivitamin. If you're taking a multivitamin, you can just drink Balance. But let's come back to the Cleveland Clinic. Why was I talking about the Cleveland Clinic? Well, the Cleveland Clinic did a clinical validation study on BioSlife. Here it is. Fiber multivitamin combination therapy. This was from the preventative cardiology section of the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, Cleveland, Ohio, submitted November 15, 2001, and accepted February 14, 2002. This is more than 20 years old. The fiber tested was BIOS Life 2. The LDL response. Inevitably, you've been told you need to look at your LDL. By the time of the interim visit, which was 4 weeks after randomization, the treatment group demonstrated significantly lower LDL-C than the placebo group. That trend continued through the next 4 weeks to the end of the blinded phase. In fact, they looked at it on LDL, total cholesterol, HDL, triglycerides, overall body weight, glucose, ApoB. It improved everything. BIOS Life. Balance. The Cleveland Clinic. They would go on to conclude that such a product, if taken regularly, could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis and potentially decrease the need and/or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. Let's break that sentence down. Such a product, if taken regularly, I take it before every meal, could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis, that's heart disease for everybody, and potentially decrease the need and/or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. Those are statins. And knowing what we know about statins, why wouldn't we do an all-natural, plant-based product? No side effects. In fact, let's come back over to the PDR. Remember talking about the PDR? Let's look up unicity balance. It's in the PDR. It's in the prescriber's digital reference, the physician's desk reference. It's been in there for some time. What you won't find is Metamucil. Not in there. But let's talk about unicity balance. Let's go there. Right there. Let's click unicity balance. We'll go to the prescribing info, the full prescribing info. You'll find no side effects. It doesn't interact poorly with your current medications. So if you're on medications, there's no reason you can't take this at the same time. All you're going to find is that your numbers improve and you go talk to your medical professional about maybe taking you off of the medications. Wouldn't that be wonderful? We talked about the glycemic index. I want to go over to Google and let's ask Google, what is the home of the glycemic index? Google will tell you the International Glycemic Index database and website are led by Professor Jenny Brand-Miller at the University of Sydney, Australia. That's the home of the glycemic index. In fact, if you type glycemicindex.com into your web browser, it will take you to the University of Sydney, Australia. When you click the About page, it will immediately talk about her, Professor Jenny Brand-Miller. In fact, it will talk about her before it talks about what is the glycemic index. Professor Jenny Brand-Miller is an internationally recognized authority on carbohydrates and the glycemic index with over 250 scientific publications. Dr. Jenny Brand-Miller is an absolute powerhouse in the conversation that revolves around glycemic index, insulin index, blood glucose control. That's what she does. Blood insulin level, that's what she does. She's an international authority on it. Why do I talk about her? Because Dr. Jenny Brand-Miller studied the effects of fiber-rich nutritional supplement BIOS Life Slim at the University of Sydney, Australia for Unicity International. There's her name right there. And what she did was she looked at the effects of BIOS Life on 3 commonly starchy foods. Remember the ones we got from the Mayo Clinic? White rice, white bread, mashed potato. She looked at BIOS Life with all 3 of those, namely white bread, white rice, and mashed potato. In each case, it reduced the glycemic indices from high glycemic foods to medium glycemic foods. Furthermore, and noteworthy given the relevance of insulin in obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and more, the fiber supplement reduced the insulin index of all three test foods, effectively reducing the insulin secretion following food ingestion. That's powerful. That's Dr. Jenny Brand Miller. They didn't stop there. They studied it a second time. The second time they studied it, they studied the effects of BioSlife. By the way, this was July of 2011, nearly 13 years ago. They studied it against white bread. White bread is a 100 on the glycemic index. And they gave test patients either 1 or 2 servings of BioSlife. When they gave them 1 serving, they found a 20% reduction in blood glucose. That is a massive number, a massive, massive number. In fact, if you get done eating and you are used to your blood glucose being like 300, 20% off of that makes that a 240. It is a huge number. 2 servings was even bigger, 28% reduction in blood glucose. But since we're talking about blood insulin levels and how insulin really is the problem, they found a 13 to 27% reduction in blood insulin levels. That's Dr. Jenny Brand Miller at the University of Sydney, Australia. If we go to unicityscience.org, you can hit the research tab. And when you click that, you will find all of the clinical validation studies on the products. If you scroll through, read them. There is proof, lots of proof. We've been taught, trust the science. Here's the science right in front of you. If you want, right here is the Cleveland Clinic. Hit see full study, and it'll take you to the full study. But notice up at the top, it says science team. What you'll find is that Unicity is a science-based company putting out a food-based product. Go to the About Us portion, and you'll meet the science team. They have 3 PhD level doctorates on their research and development staff. 3 PhD level doctorates. They also have a Unicity Scientific Advisory Board where Dr. Ben Bickman is the director. He's the director of the Scientific Advisory Board. Remember this guy? Dr. Ben Bickman is the director of the Scientific Advisory Board. So let me touch on how to buy the product. First off, you only buy the product direct from the manufacturer. It's the least expensive way to buy it. You're not paying any middleman markup. You just buy it direct from the manufacturer. Buy it directly from Unicity. If you buy it directly from them, it's $199. Right now, it's May of 2024. It's $199 if you buy it direct from them. If you go through another member like myself, you get a membership referral fee, a membership referral discount. And right now, it's $159 to get the Feel Great system. The Feel Great system comes with 60 packets of Unimate. That's 2 of these per day. So you have 1 for breakfast, and you kind of just transition into 1 for your lunch, early afternoon drink. And then before your heaviest meal of the day, you drink a balance. It's $159 per day or per month. That's $5.30 per day, approximately. I would argue you can't get through Starbucks for $5.30 per day. You can't get through McDonald's drive-through for $5.30. It's going to be hard to go through the gas station to get a bag of chips and a soda for $5.30. You're going to spend that on you're going to spend $5.30. Find it. Unicity offers a 90-day money-back guarantee. What they are guaranteeing you is that you're going to see a reduction in your A1C. You're going to see a reduction in your blood glucose levels. You're going to see a reduction in your cholesterol levels. They guarantee your satisfaction. If you're not happy after 90 days, ask for a refund. What's up, Bulldog? How are you? Fist bump. How are you? Oh, is this Dustin? How are you, buddy? Okay, so they guarantee your money. If you use their product for 90 consecutive days and use it consistently, they guarantee you results. If you don't get results, ask for a refund. So 2 ways to buy the product using a member referral code. If you were sent to this live stream by somebody else, get with that person and they will go through and show you how to order the product. If you just stumbled across my live feed, the profile that you're watching me on, go to my personal profile. If it's on Twitter, and I'll show my Twitter profile. This is my Twitter profile. You'll see a link in my bio right there. Linktree/The Healthy Pitmaster. If you're on, actually I won't do that. Let's just go here. Twitter, if you click that link right there, first off, I want to walk through my link tree. If you're interested in the books that I recommend, click that educational books tab. That will take you to my educational books tab. Read them in this order. Read them in that order, okay? If you are interested in the information that I share, click that social media platforms tab, and that will take you here. I've got 2 different types of social media platforms. I'm a competitive barbecue cook, as you can see right here, 303 Barbecue. If you follow 303 Barbecue, if you like pictures of food and that sort of thing, follow 303 Barbecue. If you're interested in the Healthy Pitmaster, which is what this really is, click that. That will show you all of the different platforms. If you're on any of these, just give me a follow on them. Whichever one you're on, click that, and it will take you directly to that profile page. Here's my Facebook page, and there's the link on my Facebook page, Linktree/The Healthy Pitmaster. But let's get back to here. The very first link in there is the Unicity Feel Great system. When you click that, you will see referred by Jim and Amanda Grasser. This is Unicity's webpage. It's not mine. You're not giving me a single penny. You're just using mine and my wife's name for a lifetime discount to Unicity, okay? When you do that, hit the buy now. That's a pretty typical online checkout system. When you click it, you can go through and you can pick your flavors. You can get 2 different lemons per day. Maybe you like lemon ginger. You can get 2 different lemon gingers, or maybe you want 1 lemon ginger and a lemon ginger. Hit your monthly subscription, no penalty to cancel early, add to cart, go through the checkout. You'll notice down here in the bottom right, 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want to read about the 90-day money-back guarantee, that's where you'll do it. But this is a pretty typical online checkout system. But let's go back to the main page. When you hit buy now, just scroll down and you will see the products. If you want to learn more about Unimate, hit learn more. If you want to learn more about balance, hit learn more. If you want to get to the science and read the science, at the very bottom, there's a link for the science page. So that is, oh man, I just realized I didn't have any of that shared. Boy, that's disappointing. I am so sorry. I didn't have the page shared. Oops. Oh, that's disappointing. Okay, let's try this again. When you're at my homepage on whichever platform you're on, you will see the link, Linktree/The Healthy Pitmaster. Click on that, and it will take you to this page right here. This is where you'll find the first link is the Feel Great system. That's where you get the manufacturer's website, educational books, social media platforms. If you want to sign up for my mailing list, I don't send a whole lot out. You can book a private meeting with me right there if you'd like. If you click the social media platform, this is what it'll be. The Healthy Pitmaster or 303 barbecue. If you hit the Healthy Pitmaster, these are the links that you'll see. You can just click on one of those. When you click on the Facebook one, it'll bring up my Facebook page right here. And if you scroll down, there is the same link that we're talking about right here, okay? Let's see. When you click on the Unicity Feel Great link, there it is. Hit the buy now. You scroll down, there's where you can pick your flavors, lemon, lemon ginger, or lemon and lemon ginger. There is the 90-day money-back guarantee that I talked about. Pretty typical online checkout system. If you scroll down a little bit, there are the products, Unimate and Balance. Hit the Learn More. You can learn more about them. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can find the science page. That will take you here. You can go through the research, the science team. So that is the Unicity Feel Great system. This is this protocol. Guys, if you have any questions at all, send me a message. Don't hesitate to send me a message. I check all of my messages regularly. So don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Let's help you get healthy. If you were sent to this live stream by somebody else, get with them. They can certainly get you their membership referral code to the system. Have a wonderful day. Let's